Let's be honest, most men have been lied to about women for their entire lives. From the moment you were told that if you work hard, chase her dreams, or buy her the world, she'll somehow owe you her loyalty, you've been walking into a trap. You've been programmed to believe that gestures, gifts, and sacrifices are the currency of love. But here's the brutal truth. Women don't care what you do for them. Not really. They aren't impressed by your overtime, your expensive dinners, or your relentless efforts to win her approval. The reason is simple. Women are loyal to one thing only, and understanding this will change the way you see relationships forever. Most men think loyalty is something you earn through actions, but female psychology doesn't work like that. Women aren't keeping score like a spreadsheet. Their allegiance isn't transactional. Instead, it is instinctual, emotional, and entirely anchored to feelings they can't always articulate. They respond to security, emotional resonance, and most importantly, to whether you are the man who stimulates their deepest desires, mentally, emotionally, and physically. That's the invisible magnetic force driving their attention, their passion, and yes, their loyalty. If your mind is wrapped up in trying to impress her with effort alone, you're missing the point entirely. Think about the men you've seen in your life who are constantly giving, providing, helping, fixing, and yet when the woman they love encounters a man who makes her feel alive, she leaves. That's not manipulation. It's hardwired biology. Loyalty is never about labor. It's about connection. She will naturally be drawn to the man who ignites her inner world, the one who makes her feel like life is bigger, more thrilling, more vibrant with him in it. You can do everything right on paper, pay her bills, plan her vacations, listen to every complaint, and still lose her attention. Why? Because she wasn't drawn to those actions in the first place. She was drawn to the spark you created that made her feel something she couldn't ignore. Here's another uncomfortable reality. Women are experts at filtering the men around them. They unconsciously assess character, confidence, and status, not the kind you flaunt, but the kind that radiates from presence, decisiveness, and clarity of purpose. A man who sacrifices everything but lacks this core essence will always feel like an option, a comfort, or a safety net, not the source of loyalty. And the most frustrating part? Women won't even consciously tell you this. They act on it naturally, leaving many men confused, hurt, or angry when they don't get the loyalty they thought they earned. Understanding this is liberation. The moment you internalize that your value isn't defined by what you do for her, but by who you are when she's around, you stop playing a losing game. You stop bending over backward for fleeting approval and start focusing on the only factors that truly matter: presence, confidence, emotional stability, and authenticity. This is the paradox of female loyalty. You can do less, but be more. Less effort in the transactional sense, but more presence in the magnetic sense. This is the foundation of attraction that can't be bought, negotiated, or forced. And here's a truth most men will never admit. The very things women claim to value, security, care, and effort, are often secondary to the emotional pulse you create in her life. They are attracted to how you make them feel alive, wanted, and understood, even before they consciously know it. Gifts and favors are like icing on the cake. They aren't the cake itself. The moment you accept this, your approach to dating and relationships shifts from desperation to strategy, from anxiety to magnetic confidence. And that shift is what makes women loyal, not because of what you do for them, but because of what you awaken in them. Most men spend their lives chasing an illusion. They think loyalty comes from effort, attention, or sacrifice. They believe that if they just do enough, a woman will stay, love, or even respect them. But female psychology doesn't work like a checklist. It isn't a tally of actions. It's a living, breathing assessment of who you are at your core and what you make her feel in moments she can't forget. If you want loyalty, you have to stop trying to earn it the wrong way. You have to stop giving in ways that leave her indifferent and start creating the emotional gravity that keeps her magnetically attached. Here's the truth most men resist. Women don't fall in love with logic, they fall in love with resonance. You can provide, protect, and polish yourself into a model boyfriend, but if you don't trigger that emotional resonance, she won't stay. That spark isn't manufactured through money or deeds. It's cultivated through your energy, your presence, and the unspoken confidence you carry. Women instinctively recognize men who have this. They feel it in the way you hold yourself, speak, and interact. It's a silent language that says, I am a man who knows who he is, and I know what I want. And it's this language, not your actions, that she becomes loyal to. Think about the women who have captivated your attention in the past, the ones who linger in your thoughts long after the conversation ends. It wasn't the gifts they received or the favors you did that kept them there. It was how you made them feel alive, excited, and wanted. That is the same principle in reverse. Women respond to men who ignite their inner world, the connection, the emotional thrill, the sense of security wrapped in confidence. That is the unspoken magnet pulling her toward you. Loyalty isn't a transaction, it's a consequence of her emotional investment in you. Most men overlook one of the most powerful tools in female psychology, mystery. Women are drawn to what they can't fully predict, control, or own. When a man is entirely transparent, entirely available, entirely predictable, he becomes comfortable, safe, and ultimately forgettable. Emotional gravity dies when there's nothing left to chase, explore, or feel intrigued by. Contrast this with the man who has boundaries, priorities, and a life beyond her. Suddenly, every interaction carries weight. Every word, glance, or gesture becomes charged with meaning. That energy creates loyalty, not out of obligation, but out of genuine emotional attachment. Another overlooked truth: consistency isn't about giving constantly. It's about being unwavering in who you are. Women notice subtle patterns more than grand gestures. Your confidence when she tests you, your patience when she's indecisive, your calm when drama erupts. These qualities signal emotional stability, which is one of the pillars of loyalty. Women crave a foundation, a psychological bedrock that makes them feel safe without dulling their excitement. And that foundation isn't built through effort, it's built through presence and authenticity. Here's what most men will never admit: trying to earn her loyalty by bending to her demands, prioritizing her over yourself, or sacrificing your standards is a trap. It creates temporary approval but guarantees long-term disengagement. True female loyalty is a byproduct of emotional magnetism, clarity, and self-respect. When you focus on being a man who triggers desire, admiration, and intrigue, she doesn't just stay, she becomes loyal in ways that no gift or gesture could ever achieve. The difference is subtle but life-changing. The moment you internalize this, your entire approach shifts. You stop chasing approval and start generating presence. You stop over-explaining and start over-delivering in ways that matter emotionally. You stop fearing her leaving and start creating moments that make her want to stay, deeply, instinctively, and irreversibly. Women don't openly tell you what they want, and most men completely misread the signals. Every interaction, every word, every glance is a test. And if you don't understand the rules of female psychology, you're going to fail these tests without even knowing they happened. The painful truth? Women are constantly assessing whether you are the man worth their loyalty, not by what you say, but by how you make them feel in situations that challenge their emotions, patience, or curiosity. Most men passively fail these tests because they respond with desperation, over-explaining, or anxious attempts to please. Here's the first secret most men never learn. Women don't need grand gestures to feel loyalty. They need proof that you are unshakable. A man who falters under pressure, who bends to every whim, or who sacrifices his dignity for temporary approval signals weakness. Weakness kills attraction faster than anything else. Loyalty is born from admiration, and admiration is born from strength, confidence, and clarity of purpose. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be consistent, grounded, and emotionally unmovable in a way that reassures her while keeping her intrigued. Then there's the subtle test of attention. Women observe how you respond when they're distant, moody, or distracted. Most men interpret this as rejection or disinterest and double down with texts, calls, or frantic attempts to fix things. That's exactly the wrong approach. Women are loyal to the man who maintains his composure, who values himself above fleeting moods, and who communicates without desperation. When you overcompensate for emotional distance, you signal instability, insecurity, and dependence, all the things that destroy the possibility of lasting loyalty. Ironically, the harder you try to force her attention, the faster her emotional bond fades. Let's talk about the testing of boundaries, because this is where men lose themselves most painfully. Women will push limits, not to manipulate, but to see who you truly are. Will you crumble under pressure, or will you hold firm with respect and clarity? Will you react with irritation or with quiet confidence? These tests are invisible unless you understand them, and the tragedy is, most men fail them repeatedly without even realizing it. They try to earn loyalty through compliance, forgetting that loyalty is a reflection of emotional security and magnetic presence, not compliance or servitude. The most overlooked test is the emotional magnetism test. Women watch how your energy fluctuates in response to theirs. Do you get excited, intrigued, and challenging, or do you become anxious, insecure, and reactive? A man who maintains his emotional consistency, even when she is unpredictable, immediately signals value. She doesn't consciously say it, but her mind registers it. This is a man who can hold his own, who is emotionally stable, who makes me feel alive. That is what loyalty clings to, not your money, your favors, or your promises. Here's the brutal truth. If your relationship is built on the illusion that effort alone equals loyalty, it's doomed. You can do everything right on paper, but fail at the invisible emotional tests, and she will walk away, or worse, remain physically present but emotionally detached. Female loyalty is never transactional. It's a magnet, a gravitational pull that only activates when you command attention, admiration, and emotional resonance. Everything else is decoration. The moment you see these patterns, you stop chasing, you stop performing, you start creating a magnetic presence that makes her want to test you, not to manipulate, but because she's instinctively drawn to the man whose energy she cannot resist. That is when loyalty is no longer something you beg for. It becomes something she gives naturally, willingly, and deeply. Most men are wasting their lives trying to earn love the wrong way. They think loyalty comes from doing, giving, or over-explaining. But the men women are truly loyal to have mastered a far subtler, far more powerful skill. They cultivate presence. Presence isn't about what you do for her. It's about who you are when she's around. It's the energy that makes her heart beat faster, the calm confidence that makes her feel safe yet alive, the subtle dominance of a man who owns his life. This is the invisible language women respond to, and it is far more important than any gift, favor, or sacrifice. The first step in creating this magnetic presence is clarity. Women instinctively sense a man's purpose. When your priorities are fuzzy, your goals unclear, or your energy scattered, she subconsciously doubts your ability to lead her through life. But when you're clear about who you are, what you want, and how you show up in the world, she can feel it in every glance, every word, and every action. This clarity is magnetic because it promises stability without suffocating excitement. A man who knows himself commands respect before he even speaks. Next is emotional control. Women test it constantly, often unknowingly, by pushing boundaries, being moody, or creating subtle conflict. Most men react with anxiety, defensiveness, or desperation, which erodes attraction immediately. But a man who remains composed, who responds without panic, who maintains a steady emotional current, becomes irresistible. She doesn't consciously understand why, but her instincts recognize that you are a safe harbor in the storm, someone worthy of loyalty because you are unshakable in the face of uncertainty. Then comes the art of challenge. Women are wired to respond to a man who stimulates them mentally and emotionally. This isn't about being difficult or rude. It's about creating tension that excites, engages, and compels her attention. Challenge her perspective, make her laugh, intrigue her curiosity, and never be fully predictable. A man who can do this consistently doesn't just capture her attention, he triggers the subconscious pull that creates loyalty. She will think she is choosing to stay, but in reality, her instincts are guiding her toward the emotional experience only you provide. Physicality and presence are just as critical. Women read more than words. They feel your energy, posture, and subtle body language. A confident stance, deliberate movement, and calm voice all reinforce the perception of security and dominance. But dominance isn't control. It's the quiet, unspoken authority that signals a man who is grounded, capable, and alive. Women instinctively feel this, and it makes them not only desire you, but also trust you emotionally. Loyalty follows desire, desire follows energy, energy comes from presence. Finally, autonomy is key. Women are drawn to men who live their lives fully, who have passions, ambitions, and boundaries outside the relationship. A man who sacrifices himself entirely for a woman loses the very force that attracts her. But a man who nurtures his purpose, maintains his standards, and respects his own worth generates fascination, admiration, and emotional dependence in a healthy, magnetic way. Women become loyal not because they have to, but because they want to stay connected to someone who embodies life at full intensity. This combination of clarity, emotional control, challenge, presence, and autonomy creates the invisible gravitational field that women instinctively follow. It cannot be faked, bought, or manipulated. It can only be cultivated within yourself. The moment you internalize this, you stop performing for approval and start living in a way that makes loyalty a natural consequence. And when you operate from this place, women don't just stay, they become unwaveringly loyal to the man who activates their instincts, desires, and admiration simultaneously. One of the most common mistakes is over-explaining. Men try to justify their feelings, actions, or choices to gain approval. Every text, every apology, every attempt to rationalize your behavior is an admission of insecurity. Women don't respond to explanations, they respond to confidence. A man who stands firm, who communicates clearly without anxiety, becomes magnetic. She may test you with questions, mood swings, or doubts, but the way you handle these moments determines whether she stays emotionally invested or begins to detach. Over-explaining signals weakness. Quiet strength signals loyalty's foundation. Another critical error is trying to fix her emotions. Men often think that solving her problems, calming her fears, or rescuing her from stress will make her love them more. It won't. Women want understanding, presence, and emotional resonance, not a repairman. When you overstep this boundary, you unintentionally diminish your value because loyalty isn't earned by being her emotional support system. It's earned by being the man who inspires stability, excitement, and desire simultaneously. Helping her is different from over-serving her. Most men blur this line and destroy the very loyalty they crave. Then there's the fatal habit of chasing approval. Men fear rejection and try to eliminate it by agreeing with everything, conceding on every disagreement, and prioritizing her comfort over their own. But women are instinctively drawn to men who maintain their standards even in the face of potential rejection. Approval is fleeting. Respect and desire are lasting. When you chase approval, you sacrifice both. When you hold your boundaries, act with self-respect, and live fully in alignment with your values, she will not only respect you, she will become loyal because her instincts tell her this is a man worth following. Inconsistency is another hidden trap. Men fluctuate between confidence and desperation, presence and absence, calm and panic. Often without realizing it, women notice every subtle shift. Emotional inconsistency creates confusion, insecurity, and ultimately detachment. loyalty thrives on predictable stability in the man's energy, not in his actions. Being reliable, grounded, and consistent in who you are, not in what you do, creates a gravitational pull that women cannot resist. This is why some men who do less but command more presence have women genuinely devoted to them, while men who do everything remain emotionally ignored. Finally, men fail by misunderstanding what triggers deep loyalty. It's not effort, attention, or gifts. It's emotional resonance, energy, and presence. It's the spark you ignite, the confidence you exude, and the magnetic combination of challenge, excitement, and safety you maintain. Most men try to buy loyalty with actions and are left confused when it fails. The men who succeed are those who understand the invisible rules of female psychology and operate from a place of internal authority rather than external approval. Loyalty is never forced. It's attracted, and it is attracted by the man who knows himself, commands his presence, and inspires her emotions without begging for them. The moment you internalize this, everything changes. You stop sacrificing yourself for fleeting attention, over-explaining to earn approval, and chasing her emotional state. Instead, you become the man whose energy, clarity, and presence create a bond so strong that she wants to stay, fiercely and instinctively. This is the invisible formula most men never see, the one that determines whether she is loyal to you or drifts away without warning. If you've been listening closely, you now understand the uncomfortable truth that most men never face. Women are not loyal to what you do for them. They are loyal to what you make them feel. They are loyal to the man who ignites their instincts, sparks their curiosity, and holds himself with unwavering presence. All the gestures, gifts, and sacrifices you've been taught to rely on are secondary at best. The real currency of loyalty is magnetic energy, emotional resonance, and clarity of purpose. And this is where most men fail without even realizing it. Here's the final insight that changes everything. Loyalty is attracted, not earned. You cannot force it, buy it, or negotiate it. You create it by becoming a man who holds his life, boundaries, and emotions with confidence and purpose. Women will sense this without conscious thought. They will test it subtly, sometimes unknowingly, with mood swings, uncertainty, or attention shifts. And every reaction you have sends signals they feel instinctively. Panic, overcompensation, and desperation push her away. Calm, grounded confidence pulls her closer. Loyalty follows attraction, and attraction is generated through presence, not effort. Another truth men must embrace is the paradox of control. You cannot control her actions, but you can control your energy, choices, and emotional responses. This distinction is critical. When a man relinquishes the illusion of control over her feelings and instead invests in mastering himself, he becomes irresistible. Women are biologically wired to seek men who are autonomous, unshakable, and fully alive. Autonomy signals value. Emotional stability signals safety. Magnetic energy signals desire. Combine these, and loyalty naturally flows, not because of anything you do for her, but because of everything you embody in her presence. Let's address the final trap most men fall into: fear of loss. Fear triggers neediness, and neediness kills attraction. When you internalize that loyalty is a reflection of emotional connection and presence, fear disappears. You no longer perform for approval, over-explain, or chase. You step fully into your life, your mission, and your energy. Ironically, this is when women respond with the most loyalty. They sense strength without pressure, security without stagnation, and desire without desperation. This is the invisible, undeniable formula that governs female loyalty. Now, here's the challenge that separates men who understand female psychology from those who remain trapped in confusion. Evaluate your own life. Are you living in a way that triggers emotional resonance, excitement, and attraction, or are you giving, sacrificing, and explaining without creating magnetic presence? This is the question that decides whether women are drawn to you, invested in you, and loyal to you, or whether they drift, indifferent and unnoticed. Most men will ignore this equation. The wise will solve it. Here's a personal challenge for you right now. Take a moment and write down one way you are currently giving more than you are creating presence, and one way you can shift to embody magnetic energy instead. Share your answer in the comments. Commit to being the man who attracts loyalty naturally, not desperately. If this insight hit you, like this video, subscribe for more truths about female psychology and share it with a friend who needs to hear this. Your next level in relationships begins with understanding this one principle. Women don't care what you do, they care about what you make them feel. Loyalty is earned in presence, not effort.